everyone. My name is Leona Edegbe, a grad student of Preview A&M University. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be amongst your midst. The, the reason why I chose blockchain technology is because it's more or less, I was pretty much inquisitive. And the opioid crisis itself is in the news, and it's one thing that affects a lot of us, ranging from mothers to sisters to friends or acquaintances. Even in the news, we hear of people that are victims to this opioid crisis. Now, the question is, how can blockchain technology come into play with this? I thought about it because first, I'm concerned, and secondly, I'm a mom. And I'm concerned about my own child too, and I know every one of us have loved ones we're concerned about. So that's why it brought me to this topic, blockchain technology and the opioid crisis. Now, what is the opioid crisis? The opioid crisis is a term used to refer to the rapid increase in the use of prescription and non-prescription opioid drugs in the United States and Canada. So I'm focused on North America. And it ranges from different kinds of painkillers, whether it's legal or illegal, and name brands or not name brands. We're talking about morphine, methadone, oxycodone, Vicodin, or the illegal heroin. These drugs kind of numb the part of the brain and gives it some form of pleasure that makes people come back for more. Now the question is, how can we reduce the number of deaths related to this? It is quite startling based on research that since 1997 till now, more than 20 years, we found out that 68% of the number of deaths related due to drug overdose is connected with opioid crisis. And that is startling. We are looking at an average approximately 49,000 plus people. These things, it can be reduced, it can be combated. The government have tried their best to really figure out ways to fix it. New tools, new startup companies are figuring out how to fix this issue. And I thought about it that since blockchain technology has been used by different companies to test during their research and development processes, I'm like, okay, what if we use blockchain technology to combat the opioid crisis? How can we do that? And that's what brought me to blockchain. Why blockchain? What is blockchain? Blockchain is an incorruptible digital ledger of economic transaction that can be programmed to record not only financial transactions, but virtually everything of value. We're talking about everything. So it could be hardware, it could be software, it could be patent, drugs, it could be diamonds. Most all companies are using it to track, combat some form of inconsistencies, to combat fake drugs, and for banks use it also. So it's of value and it's incorruptible. So based on today's discussion, we're going to use the properties of blockchain technology, the understanding of blockchain technology, and see how it can work with the opioid problem. Excuse me. There are various definitions of blockchain technology. Different people have different definitions. Some say that it's more or less like a ledger that contains different kinds of contracts that cannot be corrupted. Some say it's a data structure that makes it possible to create a digital ledger of data and share it among a network of independent parties. The thing is that many people, you have like different sources that you get your information. You might not trust it, or you need to get, let's say, data or a good, let's say a used phone. You want to buy a used phone from a seller. How can you be sure that they give you what you buy? or what you requested, how can you trust it? How can you hold whoever sells it to you and sells maybe what you don't want and it's fake? How can you track the person down? See, blockchain technology helps alleviate those kind of issues. What if, let's imagine, let's illustrate it this way. You have a business partner, you sign an agreement for a contract that costs a lot of money. Time is of the essence. And you need it to be notarized, and you want to notarize it, and you go to the court. Oh, due to winter storm or a public holiday, the courts are closed. And when the courts are closed, it's frustrating. Yeah, like the guy in the picture. It's quite frustrating. You want to pull your hair out. So imagine now you and your partner now have a signed agreement that has a list of rules and regulations, and it's notarized by itself. It's all encompassed in a smart contract. And the smart contract itself, what is it? It's a computer protocol intended to digitally enforce the negotiation of a contract without the involvement of a third party. Smart contracts. Smart contracts are integral with blockchain technology. Now, with the smart contract itself, it has its lines of code, the protocols, whatever is required for or agreed upon by all parties, the different kinds of nodes, or they don't need to trust each other, but there are already set of rules that is already implemented in the smart contract. So when those rules, if the rules are breached, then it will not be executed. The smart contracts keep replicating themselves, so it does not need a third party to be involved. That's why blockchain technology is not a centralized kind of network. It's not owned by anybody. Nobody can come in there and change anything. No, it's immutable. In my own English, it's unhackable, and it's transparent. You don't need to trust each other to see each transaction that takes place on it. And if there's any change, you are able to see the history that's connected with it. It is self-executing, it's transparent, it's secured, it is trackable. Just imagine being able to track where the used phone came from, to be able to know how many stops. It is exhilarating. So imagine now, the government says, okay, you should distribute, let's say 100 oxycodone and prescribe, let's say 10 per month, and somebody decides to abuse his or her power and divert some. The network, all those on the network will see and will be able to keep track and say, okay, why did you dispense more than 10 or prescribe more than 10 oxycodone or Vicodin, whatever it is, what kind of painkiller that you're having. So that's what blockchain does. It gives us that opportunity. Different companies, different organizations have developed different developers tool for blockchain. We have IBM's Hyperledger, we have Ethereum, we have blockchain as a service. These are tools that are used by different companies, and blockchain as a service is by Microsoft. So you don't need to create your own blockchain. We already have people that help you with that. All you have to do is use these tools to create your own app. Now, why call it blockchain? It sounds complex. It sounds fancy. The thing is that it's decentralized. It's a decentralized database. It stores a registry. It's like it stores a registry of the assets of a transaction among the peer-to-peer network. We call it peer-to-peer because we have different nodes. Before we agree on each transaction, everyone that is connected to that node, whether it's the federal government, whether it's the hospitals, whether it's the pharmacy, they must agree. Each node, each person or each node on that transaction will agree. So you see where the smart contract comes in. The smart contract already have this line of code that is self-executing. And so it already has an agreement that if this agreement or conditions are not met or are met, then we'll move on. Or if these conditions are not met, you can't move past it. It will not be approved. And blockchain literally is not just a chain of blocks like the traditional sense. It's more or less, it's connected by some form of agreement in that smart contract. So we look at the different properties that makes blockchain technology something that we could use to combat the opioid problem. Now, the government talks about these drugs being given to people, prescribed to people. Maybe its conditions are not met, or it is being abused, or it is being diverted. It's a problem, and there are no proper records to be able to know how much was collected by a pharmacy or a hospital, who dispensed it or prescribed it, and who is abusing the amount of drugs that are given to them to help people that have pain. So we talk about the immutability of blockchain. The first time I heard immutable, it sounded very like a huge vocabulary. But however, with immutability, we're talking about everything set in stone. Like it's whatever transaction that is added to it, you will see the history. For those of you that are that code, you remember linked lists. A linked list has different pointers. It has, so before it moves, it needs the address of one, and also it has to point to the genesis or the genesis block itself. So the same thing with the immutability of blockchain. If a health practitioner decides to abuse the power he or she have by maybe diverting this opioid to sell it into the black market, it is going to be seen in the ledger. Nobody owns it. Instead, everybody, the government doesn't trust the health practitioner does not trust the pharmacist does not trust whoever it is. Nobody trusts nobody. So everybody's able to see the transactions on it. So you can't change anything. So it's immutable. Another thing is that it is distributed. So there's no central database whereby somebody can go there and hack it. No, it is distributed. And secondly, it's transparent. So imagining knowing that, 100 or 200 oxycodone came into the United States or came to Texas alone, we know where it's going to. We know what hospital it's going to. So whoever, any hospital or doctor that is overly prescribing it or abusing his or her power by maybe selling it off or things like that, the transparency of the blockchain itself will make it possible for us to bring to account whoever is abusing it. And the government, it's a very good tool for the government to see and bring to justice anybody that is abusing it, because people are dying from the abuse of the opioid. Then finally, it's consensus-based. So the thing is that if all those in the nodes do not agree, if all nodes do not agree, it's not going to be approved. We're talking about there's no monotony of database. No, it is everybody has to come to an agreement. So that's what makes that's why I feel that the blockchain technology can be used actually to combat this opioid issue, because it is immutable, it's distributed, it's transparent, it's consensus-based. Frankly, I watch the news, and we all watch the news, and it is sad that lots of people are victims to this. And 68% is a long way to go. 68% is a lot of deaths, and that can be reduced. So imagine trying to bring all parties on board. They don't need to love each other or like each other, but they come on board and agree that we should use this technology itself to bring the amount of deaths to the nearest minimum. And what does that do? It's time saving, it's cost effective, and it's difficult to hack. This part's difficult to hack. The good thing about blockchain technology, the immutability, is that before you could come and change one thing, you have to change, at least be able to compromise more than 50% of all the nodes in the network. 50%. So how are you going to do that? We're looking at, just imagine the FDA itself. We're looking at all the hospitals. We're looking at all the manufacturing industries in the United States alone. We're looking at the number of doctors, the number of health practitioners, the number of farms. How do you want to hack everything? You have a tall order. So that's a good thing. And in my opinion, frankly, and I guess you agree with me, it's that it can save lives. So that's why I decided that we should use blockchain technology to combat the opioid crisis. And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.